Hello everybody and welcome back to Juno New Origins, where we are currently over Herma and getting ready to enter into a circularized orbit. So let's go ahead and do exactly that. And how much DV are we going to have left after this? Well, this is only going to be a 13 meter per second burn. So yeah, this is fine. What I'm thinking right now is we may actually have to land on this engine, because I don't want to throw away 521 meters per second if we can at all help it, right? So that seems reasonably fine. We could start up a burn sometime around here or so and get rid of a bunch of this overall speed, and then that's going to bring us into a collision event somewhere around here, right? And basically all we need to do is touch down and kick off again. So that seems absolutely fine. We can lock to that planned burn, and let's go ahead and execute that. That's 21.7 meters per second. My main question right now is, what's the thrust to weight of this thing? And I think it's high. Very, very high. Oh, yes. 65? Okay. So that's absolutely okay. And let's put ourselves into velocity retrograde. Surface velocity is fine here. So we can get rid of some of this lateral velocity that we've got going on here. As you can see, we have almost all lateral velocity. Our vertical velocity is going to be picking up a bit, but I want to lock this to a pitch of 0 for now. And I want to just get rid of a bunch of this lateral velocity, probably close to all of it. So we're at like 15% thrust right now. That's 10 thrust to weight here. Very, very, very low gravity. So that seems absolutely fine. I'm going to throttle this up a little more. 30 meters per second of lateral velocity. 20. Okay, down to 10 meters per second laterally. Okay, now we're going to be having a bit of an issue. As you can see here, we've got a little off-axis velocity, and I mean, we're at 0.32 meters per second laterally right now. We're just going to call that good. Let's lock our velocity to retrograde, and our lateral velocity is actually dropping right now, but our vertical velocity, well, that's increasing. We're at 8 meters per second right now. I'm deeply unconcerned about that. Let's go ahead and boost this up. So we're now falling at 10x speed. And I'm going to let our vertical velocity continue to build up for the time being. So we can see we're at about 32 right now. We're just letting this fall on down. We're now at about 50 meters per second. Okay, so I'm going to take this down at this point. We're about 6 kilometers up, so this actually seems still good. Yeah, I don't think we need to burn just yet. Okay, so we're currently at about 5.3. This is about target speed right here. We should start a very, very gentle burn here. My question is this even positive thrust to weight? The answer is no. So let's bring this up until this is just positive, like this. This is 3% burn right now. Okay, I want it to be a little more positive than this. Let's slow ourselves down. Let's put this at about a 2 thrust to weight or so. Okay. We don't really have any information here on like landing burns, so this is about the best that we're going to be able to do is guesstimate this. I'm going to accelerate this a little bit. Let's put this up to a thrust to weight of about 4. So I'm just looking at our ground level and comparing that to our... Okay, so we definitely need to slow down our surface speed a bit more than this. That's fine. Our thrust to weight is decreasing. That's interesting. That's very interesting. We're burning fuel. I would be expecting our thrust to weight to increase right now, but I think it's because as we get in closer to this body, gravity pulls a little bit harder. So our weight is higher. Not our mass, our weight. That's an important distinction. I'm cutting our engine right now. We're slightly below our target speed for this altitude. So let's just continue to drop this guy on down, and all I'm planning on doing is just kissing the ground and getting back out of here, because we've got another location to visit. Okay, so we're up to about 20 meters per second right now. Let's put this at a thrust to weight of about 2-ish for the moment. And let's get this slowed right on down. Anything at this point that we're getting out of this engine is absolute gravy, and we've got another 350 meters per second in this. So we've got lots of fuel here. That's looking excellent. We're currently at about 10 meters per second. Okay. Yeah, this is looking good. We're a little over throttled here. I'm bringing us down to around a 1.6 thrust to weight for right now. But that's still going to be a little too much, actually. We need to cut and coast. So let's do it. Down we go. Now, really, the most efficient way to do it is to calculate exactly what your thrust to weight is in comparison to your speed on impact, and just burn all of that speed off all at once right before the impact. That's the best way to do it, but we don't really have the tooling to do that right now. I mean, we could calculate it manually, but that sounds like work, so I'll pass on that one. Thank you very much. So down we go. We're currently moving at about 6 meters per second, and we're going to want to drop our thrust to weight down to very close to 1.0 soon. Okay. I'm cutting it again briefly, but I actually want to be about 1.33 is okay on the thrust to weight. I like this thrust to weight. We can see our shadow right down here, giving us an indication of how far off the ground we are. It's pretty rough ground, but that's fine. I'm not very concerned about it for the moment. Okay, I just want to put us there. And touchdown. Now I'm still burning here. And let's get back out. So I want to go eastward. So we're going to go out over here. We can see our apoapsis is currently quite high. And we're going to take this up to an apoapsis of a fair amount. All we wanted to do was just kiss the ground like that. And that was exactly what we got. Okay, about 64 kilometers. This will be fine. So at the apoapsis, let's just move this up. And by the way, we got a Steam achievement for that, apparently. So let's just circularize this up, and I'm going to take a quick peek at what that achievement was. Was it an achievement just for landing on Herma? Maybe. Let's see here. Yes, land on Herma. Land on the surface of Herma. Fantastic. So that is absolutely fine, and let's go ahead and burn this. This is going to be 19 more meters per second. So, I mean, we've got lots of DV left in this. This is going to take us at least some distance towards our next destination. So, now we need to get ourselves out of here, right? And into this system again. We're very inclined. So, to that end, I'd like to burn sometime up here, with the idea being... This is very slow. Okay. With the idea being, this is taking us the wrong direction. Sure. Let's move this around to about here. Yeah, because I want to have this be a pretty big orbit here. So something along the lines of, well, we could just circularize it, but I do want it to be a large orbit, ideally. This does encapsulate pretty well, so it could be an orbit that is just something akin to this. We would need a pretty hefty inclination change, I think. We'll see if we want to do it that way, or if we want to take this up to the outside. This is probably fine, though. Okay, so that's 26 meters per second. Let's go. So that's going to be escape from Herma. Fantastic. And now, of course, we want to warp until we've actually escaped from Herma. There we go. That'll be fine. Now I want to set Niobe as our target. And we're going to need to do a pretty hefty inclination change, maybe. I'm just thinking about our current positioning here. There's a possibility that we might be able to get in there. It's definitely interesting. We could do a radial burn and have it come out over, like, this direction, and then retrograde it, change our timing a little bit to be out over here. I don't know that I like this much of a radial burn. That's interesting, though. That's very interesting. 500 meters per second. That's not too bad. We can dial this in a bit. That's like 70 kilometers there. Okay, we're probably going to need a little bit of this going on. That gets us an encounter at about 50 kilometers. And then we can just do something kind of like this at that point. And we can just dial that in, right? So that's down to about 30 kilometers. And we can drop this down to around 20, like this. 530 meters per second for the braking burn is fine. Keep in mind we're going to land on Niobe, and then the idea is we take off from Niobe again, and then we probably don't land on Silero. That's probably going to be an impactor. But yeah, that seems interesting. Let's go ahead and burn that. This is about 200 meters per second to transfer to Niobe here. It's good timing. And then we're going to need to do a braking burn, of course, to enter orbit of Niobe. We're going to be in a pretty different orbit. So that's absolutely fine. What? Oh, right. We ran out of fuel in this stage. Let's swap over to this stage now, and we can see 2.42 kilometers per second. Lots and lots of DV there. I like it. So this is going to be about a 30-second burn to finish that up. That seems fine. A little bit of a delay there because we ran out of fuel in our interplanetary transfer. But now we know that the upper stages of this are definitely quite functional for this. We may have some problems with some moons. They might be, and some planets as well. The planets are probably all going to be too dense for this to actually land on. Those would be impactors at that point. Although we know that there's achievements for it, so we may want to think about making some alterations for that. We've landed on Silero before, so for this one, I'm not concerned about that. Let's go ahead and warp up to this encounter. There we go. So we're now encountered, and at the periapsis, I want to do a retrograde burn. And we know this is going to be a pretty hefty burn because we're in a pretty wild orbit here. So let's go ahead and do this. It's going to be a retrograde burn of like 500 meters per second or so. We should actually be burning like right now. Okay. Yeah. I'm not actually sure that we can do this. We'll see. We'll see if this is a thing. We're already passing by this periapsis. This is a very brief encounter. I didn't realize how brief this encounter actually was. This is going to put us into this orbit here if we don't manage to achieve orbit. Which I don't think we're going to at this point. Like I said, I did not realize this was this brief of an encounter. I thought we'd have a little more time than this. But we have lots of DB to pull this off, so that's not a concern. We'll slow this down as much as we can. We can see our thrust to weight here is... I mean, this is claiming like 15,000. I think that's going to be a lot different when we're a lot closer. We're going to slow down as much as we can. We will probably have another encounter soon enough. We'll have to manufacture one. Yeah, I wish I had known this was going to be this brief of an encounter. I should have looked at that. That's my own fault. I did not look. So we can't slow this down enough to have this be a thing. So we should probably not even be worried about it, to be honest. Let's just finish off this encounter for now, and we'll find ourselves a new one. Okay, so we put ourselves into this orbit. So that's definitely noted. And if we were to do a planned burn around here or so, right? Yeah, our inclination is going to be a big problem. So what I'm going to need to do is we're going to need to go to like the descending node here. And we're going to need to adjust this inclination heavily. That's interesting. That's very interesting. We would have another close approach here. We could try to dial that in a little bit. So this would be somewhere around here. Maybe a little bit of radial or anti-radial. Yeah, about there or so. Okay, so that's under 200. We can definitely dial this in. I'm going to turn down the sensitivity here a little bit. Okay, so we wanted this to be about here or so. Okay, and it's just a matter of dialing it in, right? So we know that we're going to need something along the lines of this, and then this, and then this, and then this, and it's just a matter of finding this correct positioning here. So we can see we did manage to burn off a fair amount of our relative speed there, and that's good. And this is going to change our inclination quite a lot as well. So that's about 40 kilometers approach. I want to be closer than that. Okay. So this is about 15 kilometers approach. That's going to be a little bit better. So let's go ahead and run that burn. And that seems decent. So that's going to be 150 meters per second here. This is definitely not the most efficient thing in the world. But let's go ahead and burn this. We've got lots of delta V to make. I'm not sure if we've landed on Niobe before. Maybe we have, but I want to make sure that we absolutely do that. So let's do that. And I know for a fact we've landed on Silero, so that'll be okay. And that's the Spaceport Esperanza, apparently. Okay, sure. Well, let's warp through this burn. It's going to be about another 55 seconds. Cool. So this feels pretty low thrust to weight, to be honest. What's our thrust to weight here? 11.5? I mean, that's probably just due to distance. Okay. Well, we've got about 15 seconds left on this burn now. Looking good. How did we do on the accuracy? 7.69 kilometers. That's even closer. Okay, so 386 meters per second. The moment we enter into this, we're going to have to be locked to retrograde, right? So let's go ahead and warp on around. What is happening here? Something just broke. We were warping, but this didn't actually move. This is broken, I think. We're getting negative seconds on all of this. Okay, that updated it. Let's warp to here. I think we ended up warping past our encounter. Uh-huh. That definitely broke on us. That's interesting. Well, what do we want to do about that? Well, we could come up over here and we could do another burn up over this direction and just dial this in again, and hopefully it doesn't break on us this time. So that would just be something along the lines of... can I grab this, please? There we go. So that would just be something along the lines of this, I think. Some retrograde tossed in there. Yeah, something like that. 54.6 kilometers. But yeah, that encounter definitely broke on us. It should have automatically pulled us out of warp when we entered into the other sphere of influence, but things weren't updating correctly, so I think that bugged out. That's fine. We can definitely make some changes here. This is higher DV now here. Okay. Well, let's just get ourselves into this position, and we'll just line this up. We'll try this again, and hopefully it won't break this time. We'll warp through this. It's going to be about 60-second burn again. And yeah, this is definitely a less efficient transfer, but that's fine. We've got more than enough fuel to make this all happen. That was definitely a game bug there. No doubt about it. Okay, this time we're going to be more careful with the warp, for sure. So let's put ourselves into this orbit. 8 seconds left on the burn. 3, 2, 1, and 0. Okay, 14 kilometers, that'll be fine. So now what I want to do is I want to warp to... We're not getting a warp here button. Okay, warp here. Okay, so we're now very, very close. Let's warp to here. And let's see if this bugs again. Okay, here's our encounter. We're locking to retrograde, and we're going to immediately begin our retrograde burn. So there we go. We are now burning retrograde. At the periapsis, I'm going to toss in a retrograde burn here because I want to see how this is actually going. Yeah, we're definitely needing to be burning retrograde right now. No doubt about that. We might even be too fast this time. Okay. Well, we deleted that planned burn, and we're just trying to slow down our orbital velocity as much as we can on the way through Niobe here. So, inclination is definitely a little awkward for us, no doubt about that, and we'll see how the time to periapsis ends up working here. But we're able to slow this down a fair amount anyway. Our current thrust to weight is allegedly about 2,200 and dropping. That's because we're approaching Niobe. Remember, gravity works on the, I believe it's the inverse square law. So the strength of the gravity decreases with the square of the distance. So it's extremely, extremely impactful to change the amount of distance. So how are we doing on our orbital velocity? Well, we're down to 270 at this point. I think we're going to enter orbit this time. We're still 1.7 minutes away from the periapsis. And we've shed almost half of the speed that we need to. No, I think this is fine. That eccentricity is definitely decreasing. It's still at like 700, but it's coming down nicely. Our inclination is going to make it kind of awkward for us to land in the sunlight, but that's okay. Yeah, this is down to 1.6 minutes to periapsis now. And we're down to 200 meters per second. So this seems reasonably good. I'm not sure what orbital velocity here is going to end up looking like, but we can drop this down lower than 14 kilometers even. This is looking very, very good. Still 1.6 minutes away from that periapsis, and we're slowing down nicely. I think we could have entered orbit on the last approach if I had started burning right away like this. Orbital velocity, yeah, we can see here, time to the periapsis actually just increased up to 1.7 minutes. So that means we're absolutely fine here. I want to keep burning for now. But we're absolutely going to be okay here. That's wonderful. Orbital velocity is now down to 100 meters per second. Looking good. And this is a pretty hefty burn to get us slowed down enough. This was not the world's greatest transfer. And there's not a lot of gravity here, so we had to slow down a lot to be caught by the gravity well. Down to 60 meters per second, and there's still a lot of eccentricity here. Although we're pretty close to entering orbit now. Cool. Eccentricity is now down to about 10. 5. And let's keep burning here. We're about to enter orbit. Wow, look at that orbital velocity. 9 meters per second. Okay, well, that's definitely noted. Let's drop down this periapsis a little bit further. Apparently, we haven't ever orbited Niobe before, so that's fine. That means we're going to definitely... We've definitely never landed on Niobe before. Okay, so this is like 600 meters here. Sure. This is way, way less gravity than Hermes, or rather Herma. So this is 163 meters here. Okay. So we're at 5 meter per second orbital velocity and 5 meter per second surface as well. Let's go to surface velocity and let's warp to about here. Okay. So I want to lock to retrograde. There we go. And we can see we picked up a little speed as we fell in. That's expected. And we're going to want to get rid of our lateral velocity specifically. So how much lateral velocity do we have? About 20 meters per second is the answer. I think we're fine to drop here. So let's go ahead and get rid of this lateral velocity. I'm going to keep as much of this vertical velocity as we can. So that's down to 10 meters per second. Okay, down to 3 meters per second. 2. And that's as good as we're going to get on the lateral velocity. Sounds good. So we're going to go to velocity retrograde at this time. And we're about 2 kilometers up right now, so that seems absolutely a-okay. And remember, this fuel here is untouched at this point. So we can actually move this fuel right now. So we can set this to drain, and we can set this one to fill. We want our center of mass to be as low as possible anyway, so that's absolutely fine. We can then turn off the transfer. And boom, we've got ourselves about another 4 kilometers per second in this. So we're down to about 1.7 kilometers above sea level at this point. Let's drop this down. We're moving at about 13 meters per second. It just dropped us out of time warp there, which I assume is because we're on approach. We're going to need to definitely kick up our engines pretty soon here, but I want to let this drop a little further. So 1.1 kilometers, now 1 kilometer. I'm going to start this burn at somewhere around 500 meters, which I think is too high, but I'm erring on the side of caution here. Okay, so we're at 20 meters per second and 500 meters. Let's start slowing this down. Our target velocity is about 5 meters per second right now. Okay, as expected, that was too high, which we're deeply, deeply unsurprised about. Let's go ahead and warp this down a little further. I'm going to do the next burn at 250, which is probably also too high. This is pretty good thrust to weight here. Okay, noted. Let's keep this about here. Actually, let's keep this about here. That's only 3 meters per second, actually. We're overkilling this. 150 meters right now. Let's let this drop until we're at least below 100 meters in distance. Okay, we just got into the closer shadow cascade. Dropping our speed. 3. Okay. I want to be at a thrust to weight of about here. And touchdown. Excellent. So there we go, and now it's time to dispose of this craft. But that will be something for next episode, because it is time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and next episode, we're going to send this over, and we're going to probably impact Silero. I don't think that this thing can land on Silero. It'll have the Delta V to do it, but I'm guessing the thrust to weight isn't going to be there. We'll try, but it's probably going to impact, and that's okay. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Andy McGar, Dark Horse, Xenocyte, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, The Lounge STL, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.